Hi everyone, welcome back to another Aquarium Gardens build video. In today's video we're going to be scaping this ADA 60p, 60 centimetres long, 30 front to back and 36 tall. It's been a while since I've scaped a 60p actually, so I'm really looking forward to this one. We're going to be scaping it using dragon stones. It's going to be quite a complex layout. It's going to be doing a mountainous concave layout and getting lots of height with the stone. So let's get stuck in. I've actually pre-prepped this scape and I've done a scape in the dojo, kind of practice. So we'll go and see that in a second and then we've just got to transfer it over into this tank later on. So here is the hardscape room at Aquarium Gardens, and this is where we can plan and practice our design for our hardscapes. Here we have the dojo, the sand pits as we call it. And over here we've got our selection of wood and stone. Now today's scape we're going to be using rock only. We've got a mass amount of choices here. We've got grey stones like grey mountain or Sirius stone. We've got dark stones like dark mini landscape rock and Hakai stone. And we've also got tanned coloured stones, which is what I'm going to be using today. So down here you'll see this is dragon stone. Now I'm going to be using lots of pieces of this to build a large mountainous structure. This stone has lovely features like these holes, cracks in there where we can put little plants. It's got a lot of what we call strata as well, so there's a lot of lines and direction in the stone which we can really use to help build the shape of it and the structure of our layout. So that's the stone we're going to be using today. We swing round over here. Now this is what I prepared earlier today. So we measured out a 60p here, 60 long, 30 front to back, and spent about 45 minutes to an hour practicing. The challenge here is to try and get this scape from here to the 60p. Now, of course, if we could glue it together and pick it up and put it in the tank, that would be the easiest thing to do, but we're not going to do that. I'm going to have to take all this apart and reassemble it in the 60p. That's what we're going to do right now. Great. So we're going to start with the substrate system, and the first layer to go in is JBL volcano mineral. So I'm going to pour this along the back, and then I'll brush it into position. You can use a paintbrush or just your hand. I'm just going to move that all the way along the back of the aquarium. Now the benefit of this is volcano mineral is very, very porous, and it's going to act as a filter and harbour bacteria. So especially in deep substrates, it allows more bacteria and oxygen and water to circulate deep down. I'm going to put a bit more in the corners because we're going to have height on this side and this layout in both corners. Okay, so that's our base layer of the substrates. On top of that, we're going to pour in some ADA power sand. And this is also volcanic based. It's got all the ADA additives in. It's got clear super, tourmaline BC, back to 100, and these are all bacteria enhancing supplements. And it's going to get your aquascape off to a really good start. It's going to give the substrate longevity. So it's a great thing to add, especially to a high-tech setup where you need a really powerful substrate system. So this power sand is just going to go all over, just a thin layer, only about 1 centimetre. We'll just brush it away from the front glass so that you can't see it. On top of the power sand, we're going to put some aquarium soil. This is a Tropica aquarium soil. It's a really popular one. We use it a lot here in the showroom. I'm just going to pour the whole bag evenly over everything. Then what I'm going to do just with my hand is spread that soil out to where I want it to be. So this layout is going to be a concave U-shaped layout, so we're going to spread the soil up into the top corners, have it a little bit lower in the middle. Okay, perfect. So there will be more substrate to go in this, but we're going to do the hardscape first, and then we'll do the final top layers of the aquarium soil powder and some sand. We're going to have like a sand beachy area at the front. So we'll move on to the dragonstone and the main hardscape. I'm going to start by putting in the main stones. So what we're going to try and do is replicate what we saw earlier in the hardscape sand pit. I've got to remember how it all goes together again. So the first main stone was this stone. I'm almost doing it in reverse now, so it's going to be quite difficult. I'm just going to place them roughly where they're going to be, and they're going to be a lot higher in the main layout. Essentially what we want to do is we want to create balance in the layout. So we want more weight on one side than the other. We don't want it split evenly because it doesn't look natural. So I'm going to try and put half of the height and the weight of the rocks on this 2/3 of this side of the tank, and the other half of the layout on here, so it doesn't look symmetrical, that doesn't look natural. We're going to keep that in mind when we're putting the layout together. So what I'm doing now, I've laid out the main stones roughly where I want them to go. I need to elevate these to get some more height, especially from this main stone over here, because I want this side to be higher than this side. So I'm going to get some smaller pieces of dragonstone, this sort of size, and I'm going to use them just to prop it up. Now that's balanced, obviously it's going to be glued eventually, but that small stone has given that dragonstone a lot more height there, almost to the surface. This rock here is a little bit too flat for me, so I'm going to bend it forwards so we can almost see the face of it a bit more. It's only going to be small twist. To about there. I might need another stone just to hold it in position. That's why it's handy having loads of these smaller stones, because you can use them as wedges and get the main rocks in the position that you want them to be in before you end up gluing them down. explain what I've done. So I've opened out this space a bit more because I really want to fit this rock in between here. So I've moved this main stone a bit further over to the left, really opened up this kind of arena area in the middle here, and now I can fit that long stone across the middle here, which kind of flows and follows from there. Okay, so this stone here is quite important because it adds more weight on this side, so it gives more balance to the overall layout, because as soon as I add that stone, it now makes this side a lot heavier than the other side. So when we talk about balance, that's what we don't want, the same weight on one side as the other. It just doesn't look very natural. And that's starting to add more depth and layers now as well. We've got stones right at the front here, and then working towards the back, and our end point, our focal point, or vanishing point is the word I'm looking for, is going to be here, which is perfect because that's about 2/3 across the tank. What we don't want, or what we try to not do, is have vanishing points dead centre. Again, it's this weight and balance thing that doesn't look very natural. So this is the final layer of substrate. This is the aquarium soil powder, and this is going to go all over the soil. It's a finer texture, so it's easier to plant in, and aesthetically it's nicer as well. First of all, I'm just going to pour it in the back corners. That gives it a lot more height in the corners where I'm going to be planting carpeted plants, and that's going to elevate the background plants a bit more. Before I add any more substrate or soil powder around the front areas and middle areas, I've got lots more detailed stones to finish off the layout. So I'll have a play around with those for a few minutes. I'm going to backtrack slightly before I do add more details from the stones. We're going to eventually end up with a path, like a sandy area here, and a path coming all the way up here of sand. But first I need to put some more soil in to get the height of the soil at the back, the vanishing point, up to about here, so we can have the sand sloping forward. Pour some soil powder in here, really bring that up high, down the middle there. Try and fill in all the gaps between the stones as well. Stops the stones from moving. Just going to play with this stone as well, because I'm going to turn it round. Good thing about these stones at the back here is these points. These stones are smaller than the ones in the front, so it really plays on depth and makes things look further away. So as we're going from front to back, the stones should get smaller in size, and that really will help play on depth. Okay, here's some smaller stones that I'm going to use for details. I'm going to start at the back. Sometimes if you angle stones towards the front as well, don't have them all pointing horizontally. doing now is fill in the gaps between the rocks with soil powder. Basically any voids between stones, kind of fill in them so nothing moves longer term. Of course we're going to glue it all together as well. It's good to fill all the holes. So now the hardscape is complete, we need to glue this all together, and we've got some liquid super glue here, and what you do is get a little bit of tissue paper, and anywhere, all the gaps, anywhere that the rocks touch each other, we're going to put a little bit of tissue paper between the rocks. Pour the liquid super glue on, that will fizz and smoke a little bit, but it'll instantly bond. We're going to need a lot of glue. There's a lot of contact points all over the scape. I'll just knock the rock over. That's probably a good demonstration actually. That's the loose rock there. If I glue this real quick, I'll show you how quickly it bonds together. So if I let go of that stone now, it's just going to fall off, but I've got a bit of tissue paper in there, I'm going to glue it. That's now stuck. I'm just going to put another piece in there to make it really solid. The first plant we're putting in is the Eleochirus bacillus. So this is a really short, fine textured hair grass, and we're going to plant this all the way down the middle as like a pathway. Now, halfway through the video I was talking about doing a sand pathway, but we've changed the plan. Sometimes you have to do that. I personally thought that the sand pathway was going to be a little bit too complex for this scape, and we quite like the contrast of the green on the orange of the rocks, so I think it's going to be really effective. The trick is when you're planting little plants like this, push them in really deep, about half the plant underneath the soil so that it anchors down properly. You don't want any floating, and you can plant it at an angle or go in with the tweezers at an angle. Sometimes you might need to use your finger as you're pulling the tweezers out, because it can sometimes bring the plant out with it, so you can just pop your finger on top, pull the tweezers out. There's no real right or wrong way of doing it, but that's what I do. Be a bit tricky sometimes planting the plants when there's so many rocks, because there's not enough soil underneath to really push it into, but you can usually find little places where the soil is a bit deeper. And if you can't quite push it in, I can feel a rock underneath there, just get your finger, push a little bit of soil around it. Kind of a bit of improvisation as well. This plant is called Marsilea minuta. Really small, dark green, round leaf plants, quite slow growing. The plant that's on the front here, it will be a bit less maintenance in terms of trimming and stuff than other plants like Monte Carlo. In fact, you never really have to trim this plant that much at all. This plant is called Cryptogyne parva. Really smallest crypt we have. Really slow growing. Doesn't need as much light, so underneath this rock it'd be ever so slightly shaded, so it won't mind it there. But yeah, nice slow growing, slightly border leafed textured plant. So here we've got Helenthium Tellum Green. It's a grass type plant, slightly broader leaf texture. Grows quite quickly, so I'm not going to put too much of it in here. But having it in the foreground helps with the broader texture leaf. And as we go towards the background, obviously it goes into the finer texture grass, so it helps with the whole depth thing. Right, next up we have Micranthemum Monte Carlo, or Micranthemum Tweedii Monte Carlo, and so this is quite a versatile plant. It can be used in the soil, or as I'm doing now, wedged in the rocks or wood. It will kind of grow over the rocks and droop downwards. So it's quite a cool epiphyte plant as well. Because I'm struggling on soil depth in this kind of area here, I can just push this plant between the gaps in the rocks and that'll grow out and cover this kind of area that we want. Also works really well with dragonstone because you can actually wedge it in gaps in the rocks. So this gap here, I can just wedge that plant in. That feels pretty sturdy to me. It's not going to come loose. I've just wedged it in there and it'll grow out from there. So you can do a mixture of wedging and planting all over. So this Monte Carlo's got a bigger texture than its similar plant, which is Hemianthus calatricoides cuba, which is in the tweezers here. Slightly smaller than Monte Carlo. Actually goes smaller, the Hemianthus cuba, underwater as well. Really, really tiny leaves. So I'll put this one towards the background, and we'll put the Monte Carlo sort of the mid-ground to foreground areas. So just like the hardscape where we're using larger rocks and textures towards the front and smaller rocks towards the back, we're going to do similar with the plants. Smaller, finest textures towards the back to really help with depth. So this plant is Hemianthus calitricoides cuba, very similar to Monte Carlo, just slightly smaller leaf. So I'll be planting this higher up on the rocks towards the background, smallest texture. And again, like the Monte Carlo, you can use this either as an epiphyte plant by wedging it in the rocks, or you can actually plant it in the soil as well. Little hole in the rock there. Just going to push the roots of the plants and a bit of the plant itself as well in that hole. Stuff it in basically, and that will grow out and droop down the rock a little bit. It's important to mention when you're growing plants like this, faster growing plants with roots on stuff like hardscape and not in the substrate basically, it's important to say that you need a good liquid fertiliser, because they're plants relying on nutrients from the water column rather than the substrates. So just a good all-around liquid fertiliser like APT3 Complete, which is our staple go-to fertiliser. Nice big hole in the rock here, stuff a bit of that in there. So what I've decided to do is, because the soil's raised so high on this side, I'm actually going to carpet this. So I'm going to use Hemianthus cuba as a background plant, but just elevated by the soil, so we can see it still in the background. And then on the other side of the scape, where the rocks are taller and more dominant, I'm just going to use a taller version of the Eleocharis called Eleocharis acicularis. And that should grow just above the level of the rocks in the background so we can see it nicely. You can actually see from this angle like the different sections of soil that I've created with the rocks here. The rocks are important not only aesthetically but structurally, because there's different tiers and layers of the rocks holding all the soil in place rather than just being one big patch of soil here. The actual dragonstone is acting structurally to hold all that soil in place, and the plants will grow around it nicely. So this is Christmas moss, nice, small textured, intricate, bright green moss. I'm just going to pull chunks off of it here. We're going to use this on the rocks just to fill in any other holes. Kind of gives it instant maturity, the look of it. We can also fill any glue gaps with glue in it, which we want to cover up. Just stuff it in there. We don't need much of this, it's just really just to add a further texture to the scape that we haven't used yet, to add a bit more complexity, and also to fill some gaps that we don't necessarily want to see. Another plant you might want to use for this purpose is a plant called Riccardia camadrifolia. I might actually add that later on, but it doesn't take well to new tanks, Riccardia, so it's worth waiting 3 or 4 weeks for things to settle in and the tank to mature a bit before you plant that. It's a bit of an algae magnet otherwise, but that plant's called Riccardia camadrifolia. Right, the final plant is this background plant. It's not really normally a background plant, but it is for this layout. It's called Eliocharis sicularis, a hair grass that grows about 15 centimetres tall. Because the soil is elevated in the background, hopefully it will grow just above the height of the rocks a little bit. Okay guys, so that's the tank fully planted, and we've moved the tank back into position in the showroom here. We're going to fill the tank now, but we're not going to show that on camera because the rock is super dusty. So the shot after this, you'll see it when it's a bit more mature and grown in, and be now nice and clear hopefully. There's a few plants we're going to add later on. One of them is Riccardia camadrifolia. It doesn't like new scapes. I found it's a bit of an algae magnet, so we'll plant it a bit later on when the tank's a bit more mature. And that's all I've really got to say. I hope you've enjoyed the video and the sort of close-ups of all the planting. It's a bit of a complex scape, so it might be a bit long, but I hope you've managed to watch it all. It's quite interesting seeing a complex scape being put together step by step, so I hope you've enjoyed it. Something different for the showroom as well. We've not had dragonstone in the showroom for quite a while now, so. And yeah, see you on the next one.